But please pray with me. Lord, open our hearts and minds as we hear your word, and grant that we may receive with joy what you say to us today. And grant always that the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts would be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Last week I had a privilege that I'd not enjoyed for 15 years. That was the opportunity to travel down the highway to the Worcester County Board of Education and to offer the invocation to the monthly meeting of the County Board of Ed. That's an invitation issued monthly to an area pastor. And while there, I encountered a familiar face, none other than the high school classmate and college roommate of our oldest daughter, Shelley. Gina was presented a plaque for her excellence and effectiveness in writing grants for the school and the school system in which she serves as an elementary PE physical education teacher. And I also spotted Gina's picture on the bulletin board with her parents because she was also selected as Teacher of the Year in that school where she was once a student and now part of the faculty. Being there among educators for that period of time reminded me of a story I had heard about a fifth grader named Ted. Ted was a student of Miss Thompson's that year, and Ted puzzled and perplexed his teacher that year as he had prior to that, because he spent day after day simply sitting and staring into space, absent-mindedly, not connecting with the class or with the instruction that was being provided. And Miss Thompson constantly was taking her red pen and marking X after X after X on the many wrong answers submitted by Ted in both his homework and on the quizzes that were given to the fifth graders. Finally, one day she was moved to review the permanent record that had been compiled on Ted, the permanent record that each and every student carried in that school system. And she noted that each year there were notations about his lack of attentiveness, his poor performance. But attached to each of those notations was also another notation about his larger life, his family life, his life at home. And one year it was noted that his mother had become seriously ill. The next year it was noted that his mother had actually died, and the following year it was noted that his father didn't seem to be of much support that related to his performance academically in school. And so Christmas came around when Ted was a fifth grader, and the students brought beautifully wrapped presents, and they piled them on Miss Thompson's desk. And toward the end of the day of instruction, Miss Thompson took time to open each gift and to offer gratitude to the student that had given that gift, and to show that gift, that whole series of gifts, to the class. She came to one gift wrapped in plain brown paper. She opened that gift lovingly. It was held together clumsily by Scotch tape. Inside that package was a rhinestone bracelet with many of the stones missing and a bottle of cheap perfume. She placed the bracelet on her wrist. She sprayed a bit of perfume on the end of her hand and allowed the students to experience the fragrance. The bell rang. Class was dismissed. The students left, all except Ted. Ted stayed behind. Ted stayed behind, and he walked up to Miss Thompson's desk and he said, "I'm glad you like the presents I brought. And Miss Thompson, you smell just like my mom. And with that, he left. And Miss Thompson, in the silence and quietness of her classroom, all alone, dropped to her knees and prayed a prayer to God. Dear Lord, change my heart and my attitude from this moment forward. Ted began to show improved academic performance as she gave special attention to him. The school year ended, the years passed. One day, there was a note. Dear Miss Thompson, I wanted you to know that as I graduate from high school, I've just learned that I will be the salutatorian, second in class rank. Love, Ted. Another 4 years and another letter. Dear Miss Thompson, today I have just learned that I am graduating first as valedictorian of my college class. The university courses have been tough, but I enjoyed each and every one. 4 years later, another letter. Dear Miss Thompson, as of today, I am Theodore Stollard, MD. How about that? And by the way, I'm getting married the 27th of next month. And Miss Thompson, I'd like for you to attend and sit in the place that would have been occupied by my mother had she still been with us. You see, you're all the family I have left. Dad died last year. Love, Ted. Miss Thompson made a remarkable difference in Ted's life because she cared. Because she stopped, she took the time to spend with Ted, and the rest was the history, the story of Ted's life transformed. I don't know about you, but I've had those kinds of teachers in my life as well. From elementary school right on through what we then called junior high, high school, college, and seminary. One of those that left her mark upon my life was Mrs. Reed. She was my 6th grade teacher. I remember some of the experiences we had as a class with her, and we must have really given her a run for her money, because at the end of the school year, she promptly retired. But it wouldn't be the last I would see of Mrs. Reed. A few years later, she would be a patient in the local hospital, same time as my grandmother, and our family visited with her. And a few years after that, I encountered her once again with great consternation. She received a new pastor into her church. She had greatly loved the pastor who preceded the new guy. He'd only been there 1 year, and she'd grown to be very fond of him and appreciative of his leadership. The new pastor was none other than me. It was my first pastoral appointment, and here she was again, teaching me many life lessons as the brand new pastor. And a few years after that, I was blessed to return to that place from which I had departed and to share in her funeral service with the new pastor, my successor in that place. The indelible influence that people have in our lives because they care. In today's encounter of Jesus, we have a decidedly different individual than the one named Nicodemus who came by night. Nicodemus, a rich, powerful, and influential religious leader. And today we have a woman whose name we don't even know, who stops by a well, and there she encounters a tired and thirsty traveler named Jesus. Jesus is truly thirsty, for he has taken a long and arduous trip that carries him through Samaria. Jesus initiates a conversation with this woman. That's really radical for a Jewish man to be talking to a woman in the first place. And not only that, not only is this a woman with whom Jesus is carrying on a conversation, it is a Samaritan woman. There are deep-seated and profound prejudices between Jews and Samaritans in Jesus' culture, in the context of which he carried forth his earthly ministry. They continue to converse. And Jesus becomes for her a mirror not simply revealing her physical image, but a mirror that peers into the depths of her very soul. Jesus shows her her own life as if it were an open book. And in the tiny village from which she came, it probably was indeed an open book. One of my hobbies in my spare time is working crossword puzzles. The other day, I came to a clue that read, the subject of local gossip, the subject of local gossip. It was a 4-letter word. And after a moment, I figured out that the 4-letter word describing the subject of local gossip was the word item. We can be pretty certain that that woman was an item of gossip and continual conversation in the village in which she lived and moved and had her being. And so it's rather remarkable that as it dawns upon this woman that Jesus is more than a mere prophet, but in fact the very Son of God, that she forgets her first purpose in coming to the well. She forgets that she's come to the well to fetch water for her family and to take that water back to the village. She leaves the water jar behind. And she quickly returns to the village to share with the folks there that she's met a man unlike any other man or woman or child she has ever encountered before. Come and see, she said to her family and friends. Come and see a man who has revealed to me everything I've ever done. Those words, come and see, are significant here. They are the very same words shared in a different context earlier in the same gospel according to John. They are the words shared by Jesus himself as he is calling and gathering to himself his first followers. Come and see, he invited them, and in the same spirit, she invites her fellow townspeople to come and see and to discover for themselves, as had she, the one who can satisfy not only physical thirst for a temporary period of time, but a spiritual thirst that will be quenched not only for a moment, but for all eternity. Thanks be to God for Jesus, the only one who can satisfy us when we are truly thirsty for life in him. In those Be Happy attitudes of Jesus in that special sermon that we reshared a few weeks ago, we are reminded of one of them. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. They will be satisfied. And so, as we receive Jesus and the living water he offers to us, we can be filled and satisfied for now and forever and ever. Thanks be to God. Amen.